Okay, joining me now live in studio is Sergeant Aaron Schmautz, president of the Portland Police Association, the union that represents more than 700 PPB officers. Sergeant Schmautz, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so let's first start by talking about that ICE facility in
Sure.
South Portland. Now that the city is getting involved, we know there have been nightly protests there where the AP reporting at least 26 protesters charged with federal offenses since June. Obviously, the feds are protecting that office. But to your knowledge, is PPB still patrolling nearby, monitoring the nightly protests?
Sure, this has become a very difficult circumstance because it's not just the facility. There's a lot of residents in the area who've become very frustrated. There's crime in the area that we need to respond to. It's become a little bit hyperbolic from the standpoint that if police respond to the area, the indication seems to be that we're doing one thing or helping immigration enforcement. The Portland Police Bureau polices crime in the city, and we need to be able to respond to that work, and we also need to be able to protect and help the people in the area who are also being impacted by this conversation.
So what are they doing when they show up there?
So if there is a call for service in the area, our officers respond to that call and deal with that call. The actual footprint of the actual ICE facility is being defended by and navigated by actual federal officers because it's their building. If the federal government is a victim of a crime, we will go and investigate. We're doing a lot of follow-up. 2020 and all the incidents that happened during that time kind of informed our response. We want to make sure that we don't escalate the circumstances, but we also want to make sure that we're keeping Portlanders safe.
So, of course, we can't ignore President Trump's recent remarks on Portland. He says it's, quote, like living in hell, and he suggested that the National Guard could be sent here. So what's the Police Association's view on possible federal intervention?
I think it's really important that, the federal government has a job to do. And I also think it's important to remember that the immigration officers who are working in that building are human beings, and many of them are Portland residents. Our job is to police Portland. And if the federal government wants to send people in to help, I think it's really critical that we have that conversation directly with the federal government. If they should be asking, hey, do you need help here? Do you need help there? What are the resources you need to be successful? Municipal law enforcement's job is to maintain peace and order in the city. The federal government has worked through their supremacy clause and everything else to navigate their job. I think the political conversation needs to be about how do we protect Portland and not how do we perform.
What was your reaction when you heard Trump suggest that he could be sending National Guard troops here?
The real difficulty from my perspective is the federal government is really good at doing federal things. Local law enforcement's job is to police the city. And so what I don't want to have is any kind of tension between our city and our police. We got to make sure, again, that we know what's going on. In 2020, we also had the issue with our city government where they didn't allow us to talk with the federal officials. We need to continue to communicate. We need to continue to work together, and everyone needs to understand their role so they can be successful.
Okay, so let's talk about the city sanctuary status. Oregon, as we know, is a sanctuary state. Portland is a sanctuary city, meaning no local law enforcement can help with immigration enforcement. So how, if at all, does that affect the work that PPB officers do? Is it seen as a good thing, like freeing up PPB to focus on other things?
Well, we don't do any of that work, and so this is all kind of notwithstanding the fact that we have a mission to carry out. Immigration enforcement is something that we just completely do not have the jurisdictional authority to engage in. If the federal government is doing investigations, it's critical that we as an organization know what they're doing so we can make sure that we keep the city safe. There's not any misunderstandings. We don't have any kind of misrepresentation of what they're doing, so people call and say, hey, we see some people who are in this kind of clothing. Are they actually law enforcement? We need to be able to communicate clearly with our community about what kind of law enforcement activity is taking place in our community.
Let's touch on a story that we covered earlier this week. Portland City Councilor Sameer Kanal's proposal to make the city sanctuary status part of city code. It includes sanctuary city trainings, having a person in charge of immigrant affairs in each of the city's more than 24 bureaus. Any thoughts on what that could mean for Portland police officers?
Well, my frustration with that particular conversation is continuing to just be redundant in policy. It's a lot of work for everyone, but we have laws in place to ensure that Portlanders are safe. And we also, in my opinion, should be having a real public conversation about what they can expect from local law enforcement. We don't need more rules and laws towards our local law enforcement. We need to ensure that the public understands what to expect, how to identify Portland police officers, but any move towards a policy that would create more difficulties for us to do our job, change our equipment, change our policy, change our standards, all it does is suggest that there's a problem where one doesn't exist.
What part of his proposals do you think would be harder for PPB officers?
I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is a lot of the masking and the identification issues. In 2021, state law changed, and Portland police officers, along with every other police officer in Oregon, has to wear identification on the front and the back of their uniform. We're required to provide identification via business cards. We're also all always wearing body cameras. So any concern that we wouldn't be able to identify what a Portland police officer did or who they are is not rested in reality. And again, I think that's an opportunity to tell the public, look, we have these things in place to keep you safe, not suggest that we have concerns we need to remedy.
Okay, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it.
Thank you.